Welcome to Science at Night. This is a place for quiet questions, not quick answers. For ideas that unfold slowly, the way understanding often does. Tonight we are not looking for inspiration or certainty. We are looking for origins, not the kind that arrive fully formed, but the kind shaped by time, pressure, and chance. Human evolution is often told as a story of progress, of steps forward, of improvement. But what if it is something quieter than that? What if it is a story of imbalance, compromise, and adaptation? Of a species that survived not by being perfect, but by being unfinished. As you listen, let the pace soften. Let the need for conclusions fade. This is not a race through history. It is a slow walk backward into the long night that made us human. Human evolution does not begin with a triumphant step forward. It begins with imbalance. Imagine a creature that survives not because it is strongest, fastest, or most efficient, but because it is unfinished. A body caught between worlds. A mind that hesitates where instinct once ruled. Evolution is not a story of progress marching uphill. It is a story of drift, pressure, and reluctant adaptation. We often picture evolution as a ladder, one rung after another, climbing steadily toward us. But this image is comforting and wrong. Evolution has no destination in mind. It does not aim for intelligence, morality, or civilization. It responds, blindly, locally, temporarily. Each change is a compromise made under constraint, not a step toward greatness. Human beings are the result of countless such compromises. Our upright posture freed our hands but damaged our spines. Our enlarged brains allowed abstract thought but made childbirth dangerous. Our social intelligence bound us together and exposed us to loneliness, anxiety, and fear. Nothing about us is optimized. Everything about us is negotiated. To understand human evolution, we must abandon the idea of improvement and replace it with contingency. At every stage, our ancestors were not becoming better. They were becoming just sufficient to survive one more generation in a world that never stayed still. This story unfolds over millions of years, across shifting climates and unstable landscapes. Forests retreat, savannas expand, ice advances and withdraws. Food grows scarce, predators adapt, competitors emerge. Evolution responds not with elegance, but with whatever works. Sometimes that means strength, sometimes endurance, sometimes cooperation, sometimes deception, and sometimes it means awareness. At some point, a lineage of primates began to experience the world differently, not merely reacting to stimuli, but anticipating them, not just remembering, but imagining. This was not a sudden awakening. It was a slow accumulation of small neural changes, tiny advantages that allowed an organism to pause before acting. That pause changed everything, because in that hesitation lived the seeds of planning, empathy, fear, and meaning. A creature capable of stepping outside the immediate moment gains power, but also burden. It must now live not only in the present, but in memory and expectation. Human evolution begins here, not with tools or fire, but with a mind that could stop, look outward, and wonder, if only dimly, what kind of world it was standing in. That wondering mind did not appear in isolation. It emerged inside a body already under strain. Bipedalism, walking upright, was not a graceful upgrade. It was an awkward gamble. Rising onto two legs exposed our ancestors to predators, slowed their sprint, and placed unnatural stress on hips, knees, and spine. Even today, our skeleton bears the cost. Chronic back pain, difficult births, joints that fail long before the rest of the body does. Evolution accepted these flaws because standing upright solved a different problem. It freed the hands. Freed hands changed the relationship between organism and environment. No longer limited to teeth and instinctive grasping, early hominins could carry, strike, shape, and eventually intend. A stone was no longer just an obstacle or a surface. It became a possibility. The first tools were crude, almost accidental, but they marked a shift more profound than their simplicity suggests. A tool is matter altered in anticipation of future use. It is physical foresight. Yet tools alone do not define humanity. Many animals use tools. What distinguishes our lineage is how deeply tool-making reshaped the body itself. As hands became more dexterous, jaws shrank. As food was processed outside the mouth, teeth lost their dominance. Faces flattened, skulls subtly reorganized. Evolution does not add features freely, it reallocates. Every gain is paid for elsewhere. Meanwhile, the brain began to grow, but not evenly. Regions involved in sensory integration, motor planning, and social awareness expanded first. Intelligence did not emerge as abstract reasoning, it emerged as coordination. How to move together, how to read intention, how to remember who shared food and who withheld it. This is where human evolution becomes inseparable from group life. Survival increasingly depended not on individual strength, but on cooperation under uncertainty. A lone hominin was fragile. A small group could watch, warn, hunt, and share. Natural selection began to favor traits that functioned between individuals: communication, empathy, deception, trust. Language did not arrive fully formed. It began as gesture, posture, tone. A raised eyebrow, a shift in stance, a warning call. Over time, these signals became more precise, more symbolic. Sounds started to stand in for things not present. The world could now be carried in the voice. This was another threshold. Once information could be transmitted without direct experience, evolution acquired a new channel. Knowledge could outlive the individual. Skills could accumulate. Mistakes did not always need to be repeated. But this, too, came with cost. A socially aware brain is never at rest. It monitors status, intention, memory, threat. Anxiety is not a malfunction. It is an inheritance. So is guilt. So is the fear of exclusion. These emotions were adaptive in small groups where belonging meant survival. In the modern world, they echo without clear purpose. Human evolution, then, is not a march toward clarity. It is a layering of solutions that solved yesterday's problems and quietly created today's tensions. We are not the end point of this process. We are one temporary configuration, shaped by pressures that no longer fully exist, carrying tools and minds built for a world that has already vanished. And that mismatch is where the story deepens. To understand human evolution, we have to let go of a comforting illusion, that it moved in a straight line. It did not. It branched, stalled, doubled back, and failed far more often than it succeeded. For most of our evolutionary history, we were not alone. We shared the planet with other humans. Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthals, Denisovans. These were not stepping stones placed neatly for our benefit. They were parallel experiments. Different bodies, different strategies, different ways of surviving the same planet. Some were short-lived. Others endured for hundreds of thousands of years. Many overlapped, they met, they competed, sometimes they merged. Homo erectus marks a particularly important turning point. This species was not just a slightly improved ancestor, it was a transformation. Taller, longer-legged, with a body built for endurance rather than bursts of speed. Erectus could walk and run long distances efficiently. This mattered in a changing climate where resources were scattered and unpredictable. Persistence hunting, following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, became possible. Survival turned into a test of patience. With Homo erectus came fire, or at least the reliable control of it. Fire did not just provide warmth or protection, it rewrote biology. Cooked food delivers more calories with less effort. Chewing time decreased, digestion changed, energy was freed, and evolution invested that energy in the brain. Fire also extended the day. Nights were no longer purely dangerous gaps between suns, they became social time. Storytelling may have begun here, not as art, but as coordination and memory. Migration followed. Homo erectus was the first human species to leave Africa in large numbers. This was not a single heroic journey, but countless slow expansions across generations. Step by step, camps moved. Children were born farther from where their grandparents had lived. Humanity became a traveling species. Adaptability replaced specialization. As humans spread, variation increased. Bodies adapted to different climates, shorter and stockier in cold regions, longer limbed in heat. Skin pigmentation shifted with ultraviolet exposure. These changes were not cosmetic, they were survival mathematics written into flesh. Evolution responds locally. There is no single human form, only ranges that worked well enough. Then there were the Neanderthals. For a long time they were cast as crude, slow, and doomed. This picture was wrong. Neanderthals were skilled hunters, toolmakers, and caretakers. They buried their dead. They survived ice ages. Their brains were as large as ours, sometimes larger. They were not failed humans. They were humans, adapted to a harsher Europe. When modern Homo sapiens encountered Neanderthals, the result was not immediate replacement. It was interaction. We interbred. Today, many living humans carry Neanderthal DNA. Traits related to immunity, skin, and even pain perception trace back to them. Evolution is not clean, it is messy, intimate, and unresolved. The same is true for Denisovans, a group we know mostly through fragments and genetics. Their genetic legacy persists in populations across Asia and Oceania. Ghosts in the genome. Proof that extinction is not always disappearance. Sometimes it is absorption. What survived, then, was not just intelligence or strength. It was flexibility. Homo sapiens excelled at learning quickly, sharing information widely, and reorganizing behavior faster than biology could change. Culture became a second evolutionary system, moving at speeds genes could not match. From this point onward, evolution accelerates, not because bodies change faster, but because ideas do, and ideas, unlike bones, leave complicated traces. With Homo sapiens, something subtle but decisive shifts, not the size of the brain alone, but how it is used. Early modern humans did not suddenly become smarter in a raw, mechanical sense. What changed was cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch strategies, combine ideas, and imagine alternatives before acting. This kind of thinking is expensive. It consumes energy. Evolution would not have tolerated it unless it paid off. And it did, in an unexpected way, through symbols. Symbols allowed reality to be compressed. A sound could stand for an animal. A mark could stand for ownership. A gesture could stand for loyalty, threat, or promise. Once symbols entered the picture, the environment was no longer the only thing shaping behavior. Shared meaning became a force of selection. This is where culture begins to rival biology. Tools diversified rapidly. Not just sharper stones, but specialized forms, scrapers, blades, points, each designed for a particular task. Clothing emerged, not as decoration, but as survival technology. Shelters improved, food storage appeared. Humans were no longer merely reacting to seasons, they were planning across them. And then came art. Cave paintings, carved figurines, patterned objects. These are often treated as curiosities, but they signal something profound. Art has no immediate survival function. It does not kill prey or build shelter. Yet it appears everywhere Homo sapiens settles. This suggests that meaning itself became adaptive. Shared stories strengthened group cohesion. Identity extended beyond the individual body. Ritual followed. Burial practices grew more elaborate. Bodies were positioned, decorated, accompanied by objects. Death was no longer just disappearance. It became a transition that required attention. This implies memory across generations and concern for a future the dead would never see. Language, too, crossed a threshold. Grammar allowed relationships between ideas, not just labels for things. Past and future could be referenced explicitly. Hypotheticals could be explored. Lies could be told. Truth could be negotiated. Once language reached this level, reality itself became flexible. But flexibility carries risk. A mind capable of abstraction is also capable of anxiety. Imagining futures means imagining loss. Remembering the past means reliving pain. Human suffering expanded alongside human insight. Depression, rumination, existential fear, these are not glitches. They are side effects of a brain that can turn inward. As populations grew, so did complexity. Kin groups expanded into tribes, tribes into networks. Cooperation required rules. Rules required enforcement. Leadership emerged, not always benevolent, often contested. Social hierarchies formed, bringing stability for some and pressure for others. Evolution did not select for happiness, it selected for continuation. By the late Paleolithic, Homo sapiens had become a planetary species. From Arctic tundra to tropical forests, humans adapted not by changing bodies quickly, but by changing behavior rapidly. Fire, clothing, diet, shelter, belief, these became adjustable variables. And yet biologically we remained almost the same. The same vulnerable newborns, the same narrow hips, the same spine shaped for a different pace of life. Modern humans carry Stone Age bodies into worlds those bodies were never designed for. This tension between ancient biology and accelerating culture defines the rest of the human story. From here on, evolution does not slow. It simply changes its dominant medium. For most of human history, nothing resembling civilization existed. There were no cities, no borders, no written laws. There was movement. Humans lived as hunter-gatherers for over 90% of their existence. This was not a primitive waiting room before real progress. It was a sophisticated, balanced way of life tuned to ecosystems. Small groups moved with seasons, followed animals, gathered plants, and adjusted continuously. Knowledge was local, embodied, and deeply practical. Hunter-gatherer societies were not equal in every sense, but they were flexible. Leadership shifted. Roles changed with age, skill, and circumstance. Possessions were limited because carrying capacity mattered. Accumulation was a burden. Survival depended less on dominance than on reputation and trust. This way of life shaped the human mind. Attention was broad, not narrow. Memory was spatial and narrative rather than numerical. Intelligence meant knowing when berries ripened, how clouds behaved, which animals signaled danger, and how people reacted under stress. The environment was not background, it was an active participant. Then slowly, something changed. Around 12,000 years ago, in multiple regions independently, humans began to alter their relationship with food. Plants were no longer just gathered. They were encouraged, protected, and eventually controlled. Animals were no longer only hunted, they were managed, bred, confined. Agriculture did not arrive as a single invention. It emerged unevenly, experimentally, often reluctantly. Farming solved a problem and created many others. It produced more calories per area but required more labor. Diets became less varied. Nutritional deficiencies increased. Disease spread more easily among settled populations. Teeth worsened. Stature declined. Early farmers were, by many biological measures, less healthy than their foraging ancestors. So why did agriculture spread? Because it changed scale. Farming supported higher population densities. More people meant more hands, more defense, more cultural momentum. Once a neighboring group adopted agriculture, non-farming groups were pressured to follow or move. Expansion favored those who could reproduce faster, not those who lived better. With agriculture came permanence. Settlements anchored humans to specific places. Storage created surplus. Surplus created inequality. Ownership became meaningful. Inheritance followed. Time itself began to feel different. Seasons were no longer simply experienced. They were managed, counted, anticipated. Social structures hardened. Hierarchies deepened. Labor specialized. Some people grew food. Others guarded it. Others interpreted its meaning. Religion formalized. Authority detached from immediate survival skill and attached itself to lineage, ritual, and control of resources. The human mind adapted again, not biologically but psychologically. Long-term obedience became necessary. Delayed reward became normal. Stress shifted from acute danger to chronic pressure. Anxiety no longer came from predators in the grass, but from social position, debt, and expectation. This was not a fall from grace, nor a clear advance. It was a trade. Human evolution did not end with agriculture, but from this point on, culture began to reshape selection itself, and the pace of change accelerated beyond anything genes alone could follow. As societies grew larger and more settled, a new problem emerged, one evolution had never needed to solve before: coordination among strangers. In small groups, social order could be maintained through direct relationships. Everyone knew everyone else. Reputation traveled quickly. Conflict was personal and usually temporary. But agriculture shattered this scale. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. Thousands of individuals now shared space, resources, and risk without kinship to bind them. To function at this scale, humans invented abstractions. Rules replaced memory. Laws replaced negotiation. Symbols replaced faces. A mark on clay, a knot in a rope, a sound repeated by an authority. These stood in for trust. Writing emerged not as literature but as accounting. Grain tallies, land records, debts, names. Civilization was built first to remember who owed what to whom. This reshaped cognition. Humans began to think in categories rather than individuals. Numbers mattered more. Time fractured into schedules. Space became property. Identity detached from immediate action and attached to role: farmer, priest, soldier, ruler. The self became something that could be named, ranked, punished, or rewarded. With hierarchy came power, and with power came selection pressures of a new kind. Traits that succeeded in small groups did not always succeed in large ones. Empathy still mattered, but so did obedience. Creativity flourished, but conformity was rewarded. Aggression could be punished or institutionalized. Violence did not disappear, it was organized. Cities amplified everything. Innovation accelerated. Disease spread faster. Inequality became visible and persistent. Stressors multiplied. Human bodies and minds adapted poorly to density, noise, and constant social evaluation. Yet culture compensated. Architecture, ritual, law, and myth acted as stabilizers. Religion evolved alongside complexity, not simply as superstition, but as social technology. Shared beliefs aligned behavior. Moral systems regulated action beyond immediate enforcement. Gods watched when leaders could not. Meaning softened suffering and justified hierarchy. War, too, changed form. No longer sporadic conflict, but sustained campaigns. Selection favored coordination, discipline, and sacrifice for abstract causes. The human capacity to kill did not increase biologically, but it scaled culturally. Through all of this, our biology lagged behind. Natural selection works slowly. Culture moves fast. The result is tension, bodies designed for movement constrained to labor. Minds evolved for small group trust, navigating anonymous systems. Emotional circuits tuned for immediate threats, overloaded by constant symbolic stress. This mismatch defines much of modern human experience. We carry ancient instincts into constructed worlds. We respond to emails with fight-or-flight systems. We feel tribal loyalty toward flags, logos, and ideas. Evolution did not prepare us for civilization. It prepared us to adapt, and adaptation came at a cost. From here onward, the question is no longer how humans evolved, but what evolution means in a world humans now shape themselves. For a long time, human evolution and human history were treated as separate stories. One belonged to biology, the other to culture. But this division is artificial. The two have always been intertwined, feeding back into each other in subtle ways. As civilizations stabilized, new selective pressures appeared, not from nature, but from society itself. Survival increasingly depended on navigating systems rather than landscapes. Status, alliances, literacy, and compliance could shape reproductive success as strongly as strength or endurance once had. This did not mean biology stopped mattering. It meant the environment had changed. Cities created dense social ecosystems. Pathogens thrived. Selection favored immune responses suited to crowding. Lactose tolerance spread in populations that domesticated animals. Resistance to certain diseases increased where epidemics were common. These were biological responses to cultural choices. At the same time, technology began to buffer selection. Tools, medicine, and infrastructure reduced mortality. Individuals who might once have died young survived and reproduced. This did not weaken evolution, it altered its direction. Selection pressures softened, diversified, and became less predictable. Human variation increased. Differences that once would have been filtered out now persisted. Personality traits, cognitive styles, physical conditions, all found niches in complex societies. The human population became not more uniform but more diverse. Then came writing, mathematics, and formal knowledge systems. Information was no longer limited to memory and oral transmission. It could accumulate externally. Knowledge outlived bodies. Skills could compound across centuries. This marked a fundamental shift. Adaptation was no longer only biological or cultural, but informational. Evolution gained a third layer. Education became a form of inheritance, not genetic, but learned. Children did not start from zero. They began where previous generations had stopped. This accelerated change dramatically. Technologies built upon technologies. Ideas mutated faster than genes ever could. But acceleration brought fragility. Complex systems depend on coordination. They require trust in abstractions, currency, law, expertise. When these systems falter, individuals cannot easily revert to earlier modes of survival. The more advanced the system, the more catastrophic its failure can be. Psychologically, this created new pressures. Humans evolved to understand cause and effect within limited ranges. Modern systems stretch beyond intuitive comprehension. Markets crash for invisible reasons. Technologies fail silently. Consequences are delayed and distributed. This gap produces confusion and often denial. Our minds seek stories with clear agents and intentions. But many modern forces are impersonal. Climate change, economic instability, technological risk. These do not fit ancestral threat models. Evolution equipped us to fear predators, not probabilities. As a result, modern humans often feel simultaneously powerful and helpless. We can alter the planet, yet struggle to govern ourselves. We generate abundance, yet experience scarcity of meaning. We are surrounded by information, yet uncertain what to trust. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a consequence of evolutionary timing. Our tools evolved faster than our wisdom. Our reach extended beyond our instincts. Human evolution did not prepare us for godlike influence. It prepared us for survival in fragile groups. And now we live in the space between those two realities. If evolution has not stopped, the question becomes unavoidable. What is shaping us now? Modern humans no longer face the same filters that defined our ancestors. Starvation, predation, and exposure still exist, but they are no longer universal forces. Instead, selection has shifted towards subtler arenas: cognition, behavior, and adaptability within artificial environments. The most powerful selective pressure today may be attention. Human brains evolved to prioritize novelty, movement, and social signals. In ancestral environments, these traits improved survival. A sudden sound could mean danger. A new face could mean alliance or threat. Gossip carried vital information. Paying attention was adaptive. Modern media hijacks this circuitry. Screens deliver endless novelty without consequence. Alerts trigger urgency without resolution. Social feedback arrives detached from real-world cost. The brain responds as if these signals matter for survival, because evolutionarily speaking, they once did. This creates a mismatch. Attention fragments. Deep focus becomes rare. Reward systems are overstimulated yet undernourished. Dopamine spikes occur without corresponding effort or achievement. Satisfaction becomes fleeting. But this is not mere distraction. It influences development. Children now grow up in environments saturated with symbolic stimuli. Their brains wire themselves in response. Neuroplasticity does not distinguish between natural and artificial contexts. It adapts to what is present. This raises a difficult point. Culture is now selecting minds faster than biology can. Traits such as sustained concentration, emotional regulation, and critical thinking may become less common, not because they are useless, but because the environment does not reward them consistently. Meanwhile, rapid pattern recognition, emotional reactivity, and social signaling flourish. This is not degeneration, it is specialization. Just as early humans specialized for endurance and cooperation, modern humans may be specializing for information navigation. The danger lies not in change itself, but in imbalance. Evolution does not aim for well-being, it aims for persistence. If a trait spreads because it fits the environment, evolution does not ask whether it makes life meaningful, calm, or ethical. It only asks whether it continues. This creates a paradox. We are increasingly capable, yet increasingly anxious. We possess unprecedented tools, yet struggle with purpose. Our ancestors feared hunger and predators. We fear irrelevance, isolation, and loss of identity. These fears are abstract, but they trigger ancient stress responses. The body reacts as if survival is at stake. Cortisol rises, attention narrows, long-term planning collapses. In this state, humans become reactive rather than reflective. This has consequences for societies. Systems built on long-term cooperation strain under short-term incentives. Misinformation spreads faster than verification. Polarization thrives because emotional content travels further than nuance. Evolutionary psychology does not excuse this, but it explains it. Our brains are doing exactly what they evolved to do: respond quickly to emotionally charged information and prioritize group belonging. The problem is scale. Ancestral groups numbered in the dozens. Modern networks reach millions. Mechanisms designed for small tribes now operate on global platforms. The result is amplification without restraint. So the future of human evolution may not hinge on genes alone. It may depend on whether we redesign our environments to align with the minds we have, or reshape our minds to survive the environments we've built. For the first time in evolutionary history, selection pressures are not blind. They are, at least partially, chosen. This brings us to a question humans have never faced before. Can a species consciously guide its own evolution? For most of history, evolution happened behind our backs. Mutations occurred blindly. Environments shifted without warning. Selection acted without intent. Humans adapted or disappeared without ever knowing the rules of the game. That has changed. Today, we alter environments faster than natural selection can track. Cities reshape climate at local scales. Medicine allows individuals who once would not have survived to live full lives and pass on their genes. Technology buffers us from cold, hunger, and disease. Culture now intervenes where biology once ruled. This does not stop evolution. It redirects it. Consider childbirth. For most of human history, giving birth was one of the strongest selective filters. Pelvic shape, infant head size, maternal health, small differences meant life or death. With modern obstetrics, many of these pressures are reduced. Traits that once would have been selected against now persist. The same applies to vision, immunity, and metabolism. Glasses compensate for poor eyesight. Antibiotics override immune weaknesses. High-calorie diets remove scarcity but introduce new diseases. Selection does not vanish, it shifts downstream. But something else is happening in parallel. We are no longer only shaped by survival, we are shaped by preference. People choose partners based on culture, values, aesthetics, and personality more than brute physical fitness. Sexual selection, always a powerful evolutionary force, now operates through symbols, narratives, and social structures. In this sense, evolution has entered a reflective phase. We ask questions our ancestors never could. What traits do we want to encourage? What kinds of minds should the future contain? These are not abstract questions. They are embedded in policy, education, healthcare, and technology design. What we reward shapes what spreads. Yet there is a danger here. Evolution is slow wisdom. Culture is fast impulse. When changes occur faster than our ability to predict consequences, unintended effects multiply. Interventions made with good intentions can echo across generations in ways we do not anticipate. History is full of examples: agricultural abundance leading to malnutrition, industrial efficiency producing environmental collapse, technological connection breeding social isolation. Each time we solved one problem and revealed another. This suggests a humbling truth: control does not equal understanding. Even now, we remain partially blind to the systems we inhabit. The human brain evolved for local causality. This action leads to that result. Modern systems are nonlinear, delayed, and distributed. Feedback arrives too late to guide instinct. So what does responsible evolution look like? Perhaps it begins with restraint. Not every capability must be maximized. Not every efficiency must be pursued. Evolutionary success is not measured by speed alone, but by stability. Our ancestors survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were flexible. They shared knowledge. They adapted culturally when biology was too slow. That lesson still applies. The future of human evolution may depend less on redesigning our genes and more on redesigning our incentives, on cultivating environments that reward patience, cooperation, and long-term thinking. This is not anti-technology, it is evolutionary realism. Because if we do not consciously shape the forces acting on us, they will still shape us, just without our consent. Evolution has always asked one question: what survives? For the first time, we are in a position to ask a second: what should? To understand where human evolution may be heading, we must first confront a misconception: that evolution has a direction, that it moves toward improvement, intelligence, or complexity as if following a plan. It does not. Evolution has no foresight, no goal, no preference for progress. It is not climbing a ladder, it is spreading across a landscape. Traits persist not because they are better in any universal sense, but because they are adequate here now, under specific conditions. This matters because humans often confuse dominance with destiny. We see our technological power and assume permanence. We look at cities, satellites, and global networks and imagine a stable endpoint. But evolution has never respected monuments. Dinosaurs ruled the planet for over 160 million years and vanished. Countless dominant species left no descendants at all. The lesson is not fragility, it is contingency. Our success depends on conditions that can change. Human bodies are still tuned for a world that no longer exists. Our metabolism expects scarcity. Our stress systems expect short bursts of danger, not chronic psychological pressure. Our social instincts evolved for small groups, not billions of interconnected strangers. This mismatch produces friction. Modern diseases are often not failures of the body, but conflicts between ancient biology and novel environments. Obesity, anxiety disorders, autoimmune conditions, and depression are not random. They reflect systems pushed outside the ranges they evolved to handle. Evolution will respond, not necessarily in ways we expect or desire. Traits that cope better with constant stimulation, artificial light, sedentary lifestyles, and social abstraction may slowly become more common. Cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation, and resistance to stress could matter more than raw physical endurance. But again, this is not guaranteed. Selection pressures are now fragmented. Different environments favor different traits simultaneously. A person well adapted to urban life may struggle in rural or unstable settings. Globalization does not homogenize evolution, it diversifies it. In this sense, humanity may be entering a phase of evolutionary branching, not into separate species, not yet, but into increasingly distinct adaptive profiles. Genetic variation interacting with culture, economics, and geography in complex ways. This is already visible. Populations differ in disease susceptibility, metabolism, altitude tolerance, and drug response. These differences are small but meaningful. Medicine is slowly recognizing this, shifting toward personalized approaches. Evolution does not announce itself with dramatic changes. It whispers through statistics, a fraction of a percent here, a slightly altered risk there. Across generations, these subtleties accumulate, and then, one day, the baseline feels different. It is tempting to imagine future humans as radically transformed. Larger brains, modified bodies, engineered perfection. But evolution more often favors efficiency over extravagance, solutions that work cheaply, quietly, and reliably, which raises an unsettling possibility. The most significant evolutionary changes of the future may be invisible, not new organs or dramatic forms, but altered thresholds, what we tolerate, what we ignore, what we normalize. What if future humans are not stronger, but more numb, not smarter, but better at filtering overload? Adaptation is not always heroic. Sometimes it is subtle resignation. This does not mean decline, it means trade-offs. Every adaptation solves a problem by creating a constraint elsewhere. Increased focus may reduce empathy. Emotional resilience may dampen sensitivity. Efficiency may flatten depth. Evolution never gives without taking. So when we ask where human evolution is going, the honest answer is uncomfortable. It is going wherever our environments push us. If we want a future that values curiosity, compassion, and reflection, those qualities must become adaptive. They must help people survive, connect, and thrive. Otherwise, evolution will quietly select for something else, not out of malice, out of indifference. At some point, discussion of human evolution inevitably turns toward technology, not as a tool we use, but as a force that shapes us in return. This is not new. The first stone tools did more than extend the hand. They changed how the brain organized action. Fire did more than provide warmth. It reshaped jaws, digestion, social structure, and daily rhythms. Language did more than communicate. It altered thought itself. Technology has always been evolutionary. What is new is speed. For hundreds of thousands of years, biological change crept forward while tools remained relatively stable. Today, the reverse is true. Technology mutates faster than genes ever could. Software updates in weeks. Cultural norms shift in decades. Biology lags behind, adapting slowly to an environment that refuses to slow down. This creates a novel condition, humans living inside systems they did not evolve to comprehend intuitively. We outsource memory to devices, navigation to satellites, social validation to algorithms. Attention itself becomes a commodity. Measured, optimized, harvested. The brain, once shaped by scarcity of information, now swims in excess. And excess is as evolutionarily challenging as deprivation. When stimuli never end, selection favors minds that can filter, detach, or numb. The ability to ignore may become as important as the ability to notice. Silence becomes rare. Stillness feels uncomfortable. Boredom, once a gateway to reflection, becomes something to escape. These are not moral failures. They are adaptive responses. Evolution does not ask whether a trait is meaningful, only whether it functions. But this raises a question with no historical precedent. What happens when our adaptations erode the very experiences that gave rise to them? Curiosity evolved because the unknown mattered. Empathy evolved because others mattered. Reflection evolved because time allowed it. If environments reward speed, surface-level engagement, and constant stimulation, deeper modes of being may struggle to compete. This does not mean they vanish entirely, but they may become costly. Already, attention is fragmented. Long-form thinking feels strenuous. Silence requires intention. These are signals not of decline, but of shifting selective pressures. The human nervous system is plastic, but not infinitely so. There are limits to compression, limits to multitasking, limits to constant alertness. When exceeded, systems compensate through anxiety, fatigue, or disengagement. Evolution may respond by reshaping baselines, lowering sensitivity, flattening emotional peaks, narrowing focus. Again, not better or worse. Different. Some futurists imagine a merging of biology and machine, implants, neural interfaces, augmented cognition, perhaps. But even without dramatic augmentation, we are already cyborgs in a quieter sense, dependent on external cognitive scaffolding. The question is not whether technology will shape evolution, it already has. The question is whether we will notice which traits it rewards before they become irreversible defaults. Because once a trait becomes normal, it disappears from awareness. We stop asking what was lost, and evolution, as always, keeps moving, not toward what we value, but toward what persists. There is another force quietly reshaping human evolution, one that receives less attention than technology, but may be just as powerful social structure. For most of our existence, humans lived in small, tightly knit groups. Reputation mattered. Cooperation was visible. Actions had immediate social consequences. If you harmed the group responded. If you contributed, you were remembered. Evolution unfolded inside this feedback loop. Our emotions, shame, pride, guilt, belonging, did not evolve randomly. They were regulatory systems, fine-tuned to maintain cohesion in groups small enough for every face to matter. Modern society breaks this scale. Today, individuals can pass through thousands of lives without consequence. Anonymous systems dilute responsibility. Algorithms replace judgment. Social signals are amplified, distorted, or detached from physical presence. This changes what behaviors are adaptive. In large, impersonal systems, visibility replaces trust. Performance replaces contribution. Signaling replaces substance. Traits that draw attention may spread more easily than traits that sustain cooperation. Again, this is not a moral critique. It is a structural one. Evolution responds to incentives, not ideals. If environments reward assertiveness without accountability, that trait proliferates. If systems reward speed over accuracy, patience erodes. If outrage travels farther than nuance, emotional extremity becomes adaptive. These pressures sculpt behavior long before they touch genes. Culture is not separate from evolution, it is its fastest layer. What spreads culturally today may become biologically relevant tomorrow, not through direct inheritance, but through who thrives, who reproduces, and who is supported. This is why social design matters. The architecture of our institutions, schools, workplaces, media platforms, acts as a selective environment. They privilege certain cognitive styles, temperaments, and stress tolerances. Quiet reflection struggles in noisy systems. Deep focus struggles in fragmented ones. Long-term thinking struggles where short-term metrics dominate. Over generations, these pressures accumulate, not as dramatic transformations, but as statistical tilts. Slightly higher burnout here, slightly lower empathy there. A gradual normalization of exhaustion, urgency, and surface-level engagement. And normalization is powerful. Once a condition becomes common, it stops being questioned. What once felt unhealthy begins to feel inevitable. What once demanded change becomes just how things are. But evolution does not care about comfort, only continuity. If a system persists, traits that tolerate it will spread, even if they reduce richness, creativity, or joy. This suggests that the future of human evolution may hinge less on biology than on ethics, governance, and design. Not because these replace evolution, but because they shape its terrain. When we design environments that punish vulnerability, vulnerability recedes. When we design systems that reward extraction over care, care becomes costly, and evolution follows cost. The question, then, is not whether humans will evolve, but what kinds of environments we are asking them to adapt to. Because adaptation is never neutral, it always leaves a trace. There is a temptation when discussing human evolution to focus only on the future, on what we might become, on where we are headed. But evolution is not a clean arrow forward. It is a dialogue with the past. Every human body alive today is a layered archive. Ancient adaptations stacked on newer ones. Solutions built for problems that no longer exist, still operating beneath the surface. Fear is one example. Our fear systems evolved in environments where danger was immediate and physical. Predators, heights, darkness, social exclusion. These threats required rapid response, not careful analysis. The brain learned to prioritize false positives. Better to panic unnecessarily than to hesitate fatally. That logic still runs, but today, many of our dangers are abstract, delayed, or symbolic. Financial insecurity, social comparison, information overload, existential uncertainty. The fear system activates anyway, even when there is nothing concrete to fight or flee. Evolutionary logic collides with modern reality. The result is chronic stress, a state the human nervous system was never designed to sustain. Short-term arousal becomes long-term exhaustion. Adaptive vigilance becomes anxiety. This is not a flaw, it is a mismatch. The same pattern appears elsewhere. Our craving for sugar and fat once ensured survival in scarce environments. Today, it meets abundance and produces disease. Our attraction to social approval once stabilized small groups. Today, it scales into obsession under constant visibility. Evolution does not update old code automatically. It layers new behaviors on top of old circuitry. Culture can modify expression, but biology sets boundaries. Understanding this matters because it reframes responsibility. Modern suffering is often treated as individual failure, lack of discipline, resilience, or willpower. But many struggles are systemic mismatches between ancient bodies and accelerated worlds. This does not absolve responsibility. It contextualizes it. And it suggests where meaningful intervention lies. Instead of forcing individuals to override biology indefinitely, we can redesign environments to align better with it, reduce chronic stressors, restore rhythms, create spaces for recovery, not just performance. This is not nostalgia, it is evolutionary ergonomics. The past cannot be undone, but it can be understood. Human evolution is not about escaping our origins, it is about negotiating with them, because the instincts we carry are not mistakes. They are inherited strategies, optimized for survival under different skies. The future will not be built by rejecting them entirely, nor by surrendering to them blindly. It will be built by learning which ancient tools still serve us, and which now cut the wrong way. Evolution never erases history. It repurposes it. If evolution is a negotiation between past and present, then death is its strictest editor. Every lineage that exists today is the result of countless endings. Traits that failed to persist vanished quietly. Entire branches of the human family tree, Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, did not fade because they were inferior in any simple sense. They disappeared because the conditions that sustained them changed. Extinction is not punishment, it is erasure through irrelevance. For a long time, humans believed themselves exempt from this rule. Intelligence felt like immunity, culture felt like escape, but evolution has never cared how a species understands itself. What changed was not vulnerability, but buffering. Medicine, cooperation, and technology reduced many immediate risks. We lowered infant mortality, extended lifespans, shielded ourselves from weather and predators. In doing so, we altered which traits faced pressure. This created a paradox. By protecting individuals from selective forces, we preserved diversity, but also postponed feedback. Traits that would once have been tested by survival now persist without clear signals about long-term viability. This is not inherently dangerous, but it is unfamiliar territory. Evolution traditionally works through loss. We have softened that process. The consequences may unfold slowly, across timescales longer than individual lives. And yet, death has not left the equation. It has shifted form. Instead of predators and famine, modern selection often acts through stress-related disease, mental health collapse, and systemic inequality. Survival is less about physical endurance and more about navigating complexity. Those who can adapt to abstraction, bureaucracy, symbolic systems, digital environments often fare better than those optimized for direct physical challenges. This too is evolution. But unlike ancient pressures, these forces are human-made. They are adjustable, which introduces a rare opportunity, selection with foresight, not control, but awareness. If we recognize which environments burn people out, fracture communities, or reward harmful traits, we can redesign them, not to eliminate struggle, but to align it with values that sustain societies over time. This is where evolution intersects with responsibility. We are not the first species shaped by its own niche, but we may be the first capable of noticing the shaping as it happens. Whether we act on that awareness remains an open question, because evolution does not wait for consensus. It proceeds regardless. Every generation is a filter, every system is a sieve. What passes through defines the future, not by intention, but by persistence. Human evolution does not point toward perfection, it never has. What it points toward is continuity, just enough coherence to move forward. We often imagine evolution as a ladder, each rung higher than the last. But it has always been a branching path, dense with dead ends, detours, and returns. Homo sapiens did not win because we were destined to. We persisted because, at a critical moment, our traits matched a narrow window of conditions. That window is closing, not abruptly, not dramatically, but measurably. Climate instability, ecological collapse, and technological acceleration are reshaping the selective landscape faster than biology alone can respond. Cultural evolution now moves orders of magnitude quicker than genetic change. This decoupling matters. Our bodies still carry Paleolithic expectations, slow environments, tight communities, immediate feedback. But we now live inside abstract systems that operate at planetary scale and digital speed. The result is friction, anxiety without predators, burnout without famine, loneliness in populations of billions. These are not moral failures, they are evolutionary mismatches. Evolution did not design us for permanence. It designed us for response. And response requires alignment between organism and environment, which raises a question no previous species has faced. What happens when the environment is something we build faster than we can adapt to it? In the past, environments selected bodies. Now, bodies inhabit systems. And systems have values, whether we admit it or not. Algorithms reward attention, economies reward extraction. Institutions reward stability over truth. These pressures shape behavior as powerfully as climate once did. This is selection by design, not intentional perhaps, but real. And unlike ice ages or asteroid impacts, these forces can be examined, debated, and altered. That does not mean we can escape evolution. It means we participate in it consciously. For the first time, the future of human traits may depend less on survival against nature and more on the kinds of worlds we choose to maintain. Evolve empathy or reward aggression. Cultivate cooperation or normalize fragmentation. Design systems that favor resilience or speed alone. None of these choices stop evolution, they steer it. And steering, even imperfectly, is unprecedented. We are no longer just the outcome of ancient pressures. We are becoming a pressure ourselves. What we select for now will echo, not in myth, but in bone, behavior, and memory. So, has human evolution ended? In one sense, no. Genes still mutate, selection still operates, bodies are still born, grow, fail, and die. But in another sense, something has shifted. For most of our history, evolution acted from the outside in. Climate, predators, scarcity, disease. These forces shaped us without asking our permission. Adaptation was slow, blind, and irreversible. Now, for the first time, a species understands the process that made it. We can trace our lineage in fossils and DNA. We can model selection pressures. We can alter environments intentionally. This awareness changes the texture of evolution itself. Not because biology stops, but because choice enters the system. We already intervene in selection. Medicine allows traits that once ended lineages to persist. Technology compensates for physical limits. Culture overrides instinct. Memory replaces genetics as a storage system for survival strategies. We are editing the rules while still playing the game, and yet, this does not grant mastery. Evolution is not impressed by intelligence. It is not persuaded by intention. It only responds to outcomes. A technology that saves lives today but destabilizes ecosystems tomorrow is still a selective force. A culture that accelerates growth while eroding meaning still reshapes behavior. A society that survives physically but fractures psychologically is still evolving, just not necessarily forward. Progress is not an evolutionary guarantee. Adaptation is not wisdom, and survival does not imply understanding. The danger is not that evolution ends. The danger is that it continues blindly inside systems we mistake for control. We speak of the future of humanity as if it were singular. But evolution has never favored singular outcomes. It experiments, it branches, it abandons. The human story may not converge, it may diverge. Different environments, digital, ecological, social, may sculpt different versions of what it means to be human. Not speciation in the biological sense, but in cognition, values, perception. Already, attention spans, social bonds, risk tolerance, and identity are shifting within a single generation. These are not trivial changes. They are substrates of future selection. The question then is not whether evolution will continue. It will. The question is whether we will notice what we are becoming while it happens. Because evolution does not announce itself. It whispers over centuries through habits that feel normal, through systems that feel inevitable. And by the time its direction is obvious, it is usually irreversible. Human evolution did not begin with tools, nor with fire, nor even with language. It began with a body trying to remain alive in a world that did not care. Everything since then, stone axes, myths, cities, algorithms, has been an extension of that same impulse, to endure, to adapt, to make meaning under pressure. We like to imagine evolution as a ladder, with us standing at the top. But it was never a ladder. It is a river. It bends, it splits, it loops back on itself, and sometimes it carries things away. What makes humans unusual is not strength, speed, or even intelligence in isolation. It is our ability to externalize adaptation. We build memory outside the brain. We store survival in stories, symbols, and systems. Culture becomes inheritance. Knowledge becomes anatomy. But this gift carries weight. The more we buffer ourselves from natural selection, the more responsibility shifts inward. The environment no longer selects us alone. We select ourselves through the worlds we design, and those worlds now evolve faster than biology ever could. This creates a tension no previous human faced, ancient minds inside accelerating systems. Evolution shaped us to notice movement, faces, threats, belonging. It did not shape us for constant abstraction, endless comparison, or planetary-scale consequences. And yet, here we are. Still storytelling, still searching, still standing at the edge of something vast and difficult to fully see. The story of human evolution is not finished, but it is no longer written only by climate and chance. It is written by attention, by values, by what we choose to amplify and what we allow to fade. Perhaps the most important adaptation ahead is not technological or genetic, but perceptual, learning to see ourselves not as the end point of evolution, but as a moment within it, a moment with awareness, a moment with choice, a moment with responsibility. Because evolution does not ask whether we are ready. It only continues. And whether that continuation leads to fragmentation or flourishing depends on something evolution has never required before: understanding ourselves while we are still becoming. And here, we can let the story rest. There is nothing left to solve tonight. No conclusions you need to hold on to, no answers waiting to be memorized. You've listened long enough, thought deeply enough. If your eyes feel heavy, that's okay. If your thoughts begin to drift, let them. The world will still be here when you wake. The questions, too. For now, allow the noise to fade. Allow the mind to loosen its grip. You don't need to stay alert anymore. You don't need to follow every word. Just breathe. And when you're ready, rest.